đến với chương trình ActTV của Kiến Việt.net. Hôm nay chúng tôi hân hạnh mời đến trường quay Mr. Yoshiharu Tsukamoto từ văn phòng Bow. Đây là một tên tuổi rất nổi tiếng ở châu Âu và Nhật Bản, và Kiến Việt rất vinh hạnh là được mời ông tham gia cái chương trình phỏng vấn ngày hôm nay. Thank you, Mr. Yoshiharu Tsukamoto, to join our interview today. We are very happy to invite you to our interview, and we would like to have a chance to talk with you and to have a chance to got your sharing about your life, your work in this interview. And do you want to talk to Kiến Việt audience to say something to Kiến Việt audience?
Audience?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. This is Yoshiharu Tsukamoto from Atelier Bow, and I'm from Tokyo. I'm based in Tokyo and teaching at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. This is first time for me to visit Vietnam in my life. So, and then I just arrived at Hanoi, so please don't ask me about Hanoi.
Yeah, okay. The detail. Okay, this is our first question. The name of your atelier is Bow. So, what does it mean? And is it a musical band or new sound related to Bauhaus?
I knew there are several similar sound, a name as a sound, and of course Bauhaus was something we recognized from the beginning. But actually, we just simply called us Atelier Bow since we like dogs, yeah, and we were, when we started our team Atelier Bow in 1992, my partner Momoyo's family raised one dog, and we were very much impressed by this dog, and then so because why we were, it's a kind of respect to this dog, and then we call ourselves Bow Wow. So, yeah.
Very interesting information. Start from the love of pet, right? So the media thinks that Bow Wow is popular for vernacular architecture, culture aspects, and small buildings in a modern urban context. So, what is your opinion?
Opinion of what?
About something that media mentioned.
Media.
Yeah.
It's there are always time difference between what we are really focusing on now and the media recognize ourselves. And so I know this always happens. So, but basically, this understanding is not wrong. We are interested in vernacular architecture. We worked a lot on small house design in the densely built environment in Tokyo, and we did many study, urban research, field work in the city or in the farming area, and fishermen's villages, mountains, and we also designed several public space and did many experimental public space under the framework of art exhibitions called micro public space. And so in that sense our interest is very close to the special practice by people, and the kind of as a kind of livelihood, which is produced in each places with some sort of construction method and materials, and also behavior of the people. So it's those, how to say, segments which you mentioned,
Yes.
are somehow the important segment to grasp those, to develop our interest. So yeah, that's.
So this generally is depend on the context you change or approaching.
Of course, but mainly we're interested in how our life is surrounded by many, how to say, surrounded by different type of network, and some networks are still quite close to the almost ethnographical network, but this and then other aspects other parts are connected with more industrialized society network. But actually we are living in a quite hybrid conditions in that sense, and then the main question is where we are and what we are doing and how we are living, in which kind of living, in which kind of livelihood we are living in, and so architecture is quite important means to think about and to intervene or reframing or the quality of livelihood, ecology of livelihood, and so our interest is to dedicate redefining the ecology of livelihood today. Yeah.
And Bobo has been with the concept of pet architecture, behaviorology, micro-public space, illness, thing transformation. So what is the most interesting topic between these things?
Oh, as I mentioned, all those are quite important segments to execute certain studies or kind of design practice, or developing the architectural thoughts. And so it's difficult to say what is the most important. Maybe behaviorology is the most core ideas to unify our different interests into one.
Can you explain more about behaviorology? Behavior can be the central knowledge about the relationship among human life, nature, and built environment.
Behaviorology is our concept, our philosophy about architecture, about city, about public space. So everything what we work, and at the same time it's quite useful method to investigate our livelihood, ecology of livelihood, and basically in architecture design there are three important behavior which all are coexisting in same project, same building. The first one is natural behavior, such as light and wind and heat and humidity and shadows, and so those natural elements behave based on the natural principle, and so for example, if the sun rises and then the window gets the sunlight from, and then the room temperature rises up in few hours, and then if the light is if the air is heated, then they try to go up. They try to go up and then create a kind of air stream circulation. And if you have a small window on the bottom and then shaded area and high window on top, and then you can create a kind of gravity ventilation. And they are all about the behavior of the natural elements. And sometimes the condensation on the glass wall can be also considered as behavior of the humidity on the very cold surface of the glass. Yeah. And so they are designing architecture, we have to guide those natural behavior to perform in a pleasant and delightful manner for us. And people also behave according to the habit, which is a very cultural things.
Is it okay?
Yeah, so if you know behaviorology, or if you apply the behaviorology in architecture design, you can diversify the considerations on certain different agents, and at least nature and human and building itself. And it's quite important because design, what is design? Design is a kind of create a kind of balance between different constellations, so, or overlaying different constellations. So bringing many different constellations in one place and to define one single piece, I think that this is quite important to think for design. So this is what design is doing. And so in that sense, the diversity of consideration is very important to make your design better and good, more thoughtful. And so behaviorology can really help to diversify the channel of considerations in your architectural design. And then another thing, the behavior is something you can't really monopolize. Behavior is everywhere, and then it's a kind of nature which is already embedded in different agents. So the light, wind, heat, they all have their own behavior, and we can't really change this nature. And then human behavior, which is established through the long history in each country, each community, and it is not owned by one single person. It's shared among others, and among the members of this community or these groups. And so it is, and then also building behavior, yeah, for example, typology of the building, or the design of the windows in each cities, the design of the loggia or balconies in each cities. They are not owned by one single person. It's all shared, and then by different buildings, different owners. So it's a kind of common resources which anyone can access actually. And this is sorry. So I think nowadays it's very important to think about this shareability of or common resources which people can access and utilize and develop together, rather than just holding some objects on each one's dispositions, yeah. And what is that? Yeah, behavior. And then behavior is since it is shared already, and then it's embedded in the place and also the people who live there, and also you don't need to bring totally new things. You can start from working with those resources, and I think it's quite important to make a liaison, connection between today and past, and today and future. Yeah, it's a kind of relay. So our role is to relay those legacies or the things from the past to the future. And then I think behavior is something really helpful to do it. Yeah.
So you made me think about the bad architecture theory from the book. Because last time when I read it, I see that you do research on Tokyo urban context, and you found some rule, found some kind of I see the continuous between the behaviorology and the previous theory.
Of course, the architecture is a kind of phenomena which you can observe in Tokyo. It's extremely tiny buildings, which is produced by the transformation of the city, like enlargement of the street, cut the front part of the property and then leave tiny property in front of the other building, or the enlargement of the crossing create an extremely tiny triangle corner, or intervention of a new road into old street pattern create a kind of a triangular shape buildings by this shift, or the shift of the angle of the street, and also the encounter of the street which wants to become perpendicular, and the train tracks or rivers which wants to curve, always produce leftover space between two geometry. And those leftover space we call gap space are fully utilized by specific use which fits to that kind of size. And then it's very funny. It always has funny shape and very, how to say, friendly, because it's extremely tiny. And then you can really see how the user customize that kind of building by their necessity, needs, and so it's still building, but very close to the human body and human activity. And we started pet architecture guidebook, observing pet architecture in the process of making Made in Tokyo. And actually in Made in Tokyo there is the first pet architecture as one of the Made in Tokyo building. And so, but we found Made in Tokyo is about hybrid building. Very strange hybridization of building and civil engineering structures, and or utilization of adjacent environment for certain specific use. And so it's a very hybrid, which go beyond the conventional definition of what is architecture. And but and then within this study research, we found extremely tiny buildings, a lot in the city. So we found it could be another framework to investigate the city of Tokyo. And and then I think in both cases, Made in Tokyo and the Pet Architecture Guidebook, the central idea is how to introduce the space which is produced by through the practice by people, not by the architect, and not by professionals, and not by industries. And I'm very interested in this. Yeah, we can say informality of architecture, or this kind of yeah, it's a kind of direct materialization of ecology of livelihood, without paying too much attention to make it as architecture. In entre guillemets, yeah, but but I think it's quite direct and also critical to what architects have produced during 20th century. So we were very interested in that. And then pet architecture and Made in Tokyo, it's a kind of a collection of unique behavior of the buildings in the city. And then behind those behavior we can read the practice of people and some very, how to say, purposeful necessity to make things encounter in an unconventional manner. So it is not a rational solution, but very purpose-wise, it's really relevant solution, for example. And I'm very much excited. We are very much excited to see how city of Tokyo is made from those type of buildings. The building which is not always rational, but purpose-wise very relevant and direct. Yeah? Mm.
And this is approaching is you must follow it in your design, and there are a lot of buildings that you design and build following the behaviorology. And so among your works, which building you want to introduce to Kính Việt audience?
We designed already almost 80-90 buildings, so it's quite difficult to say.
Because my intention is we want to know what building is you, for example, for the beginning, when you apply the theory and you start to experience.
No, it's from the beginning. Actually, I didn't have the word behaviorology from the beginning. It started around 2007 or 6. I started to use the word behaviorology, and we started I started my design practice from 1990. But at that moment, I have already I had a strong interest on behavior of things, behavior of human beings, behavior of nature, behavior of buildings, which is architectural language or repetitive architectural language in certain place or typologies. But gradually I realized that behind those interests there is there is a shared concept, which is behavior. Yeah.
You realize the rule between design between.
Yeah, because so people who discuss about the thermal environment of the building, they just talk about how to reduce the CO2 and how to make a window more insulated, how to make roof and wall more perform higher to perform better in terms of thermal performance, and they don't talk about so much about typologies. Typology is more, the interest of typology is how to make a connection between architecture, form of architecture and morphology of the city. And it is quite also important to think about thermal performance, but the people who specialize the building thermal performance, they don't talk about typologies. But people who are interested in typology, they are more interested in urbanism and history of the city, and very different. And also people who discuss program of the building, they discuss a lot about activities of people and etc. etc. But they don't talk so much about typologies and thermal performance. So it's I was interested in all those type of these discussions are quite interesting for me, but I also found that once you start discussing this, you can't discuss this, and then you can't discuss this. So it's, but I think it's not good, because architecture and city is very complex, and it should be more comprehensive and more. So we need the theory or logic to deal with all these different topics and constellations. And then behavior is actually center, something in the middle. So it's a central idea to deal with all these type of discussion.
It looks like you change your point of view, and after you change the point of view, I can understand.
No, I didn't change the point of view. What do you mean?
Yeah, because you mentioned that you had many sides, and between, if someone follow any side, people can just as a side with their side, and then that means by behavior theology, you can see different. You can go upper or you can down. You can look in different way, and to see things change, and you try to combine everything. And one thing is, I am very interested in your concept of space, because representative of space and space of representative
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that last time I have read about it.
The space of representation and
Yeah.
representation of space and space
Something
practice of
related to-
space.
Yeah, and practice.
No, this is Henri Lefebvre,
Oh,
the French philosopher who wrote in his book Production of Space. Those three concepts of space are discussed, and the space of representation is it's like a drawing. It's the architecture space which is designed by architect or specialist professionals using the drawings and models, and so which is a kind of formal way to construct the space.
yes.
And representation of space is the quality of space which is emerged, accumulated by the constant appropriation by someone else, some group of people or some individual. And if some people, some group of people use certain area, certain space, he called this appropriation. And then another layer of the quality of space is added on the space. And so these two concept of space is quite how to say important, but it's not necessarily opposite, but since the one which is the people behind it, behind these two different space are quite different. So the space of representation is behind space of representation there is professionals, and behind the representation of space there is users, inhabitants. And in the modern era, so this division between professionals and the inhabitants and users became extremely sharp and modern era really divide the world, the construction into two sides. Yeah, one is the professionals, the other is users or customers or inhabitants. And then since they are categorized as opposed party in the society, so these two concepts always doesn't match, and it appears as a kind of opposed concept. But I think actually it's two sides of the same thing, so it's not necessary to make them opposed. And so in order to resolve this conflict or opposition between these two concepts, Lefebvre established the third concept, which is a practice of space, special practice. And special practice needs both space of representation and representation of space. They both need, space actually needs professionals and users and inhabitants to appear in our society. So, and I think the idea of special practice is try to create a kind of empty, the emptiness of the subjectivity about space. So it sounds like space itself wants to appear in the society. So this is a practice of space. And so by introducing this practice of space, he can Henri Lefebvre proposed to avoid the direct opposition between two concepts, and then create a kind of start to rotate together as Trillion, I don't know how to say. Yeah, it's the three things together to rotate. Yeah. I don't remember. Okay. Yeah.
And
Trilogy or something. I don't know. Yeah, how to say. Yeah.
so the last question.
Yeah.
So if possible, what would you like to say about your life partner, Miss Momoyo Kashima?
Oh.
It sees the central or connection between you and architecture, life and nature.
Maybe once she visited Vietnam, but we really like to do something for the very this typology of how to say tube house. I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
Very very unique typology. I saw many today also in Hanoi. Very very narrow and deep buildings, 3-4 stories high, and then it's almost kitsch and pastiche, and but this is the typology which really create the city of Hanoi.
Yeah.
So it's a main ingredients of the city. So I think there are many intelligence also in these buildings, in this typology. So I really like to rediscover this intelligence of tube house. Is it tube house?
Tube house.
Oh, okay.
Tube house. Yeah. Anh vẫn đang quay đúng không? Yeah. Okay.
So please call Bow Wow to ask to give us some commission to redesign the tube house.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because because your behavior is from Japan, and maybe when you come to Vietnam, you have commission in Vietnam, and you will find out some different behavior.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, our method is more. We are quite close to the ethnographer or anthropologist.
Yeah.
Of course we are designer, but the design can be very sharp, very useful means to investigate ethnography and anthropology. And I'm very interested in to utilize architecture to discovering the kind of the intelligence and knowledge of the people from the place. Yeah?
Yes.
And most of the case, architecture is a kind of container of the intelligence.
Another thing is the last thing I want to know is so because you start from your atelier from Japan, right? The name of the atelier, and then you realize you fall in love with the small house. After you do the research made in Tokyo and Japan architecture. And then you develop the behaviorology. And I see that there is a small trait from the beginning until now. Is this?
Maybe you'd better to check another book, Commonalities, but it's only available in Japanese. But there are, it's about public space, and there are investigation. In this book, we investigated the different public space in the world, and it's not a very formal public space, but it's the open space in the city appropriated by the people's behavior, and people customize that space and then transform it for their own open space in the city. So you can really meet the real people who are responsible on maintaining that place and also driving that space and creating liveliness of that space. And those type of public spaces are most appreciated. And I really like, some of our work are now moving into that directions.
I see that's the behavior that means you're listening to
Yeah.
life, and that means you have to accept nature, accept it. And sometimes I realize suddenly I realize there are between 1 and 0 you find something in the middle, the gray. So I know that the Japanese love gray,
Layer.
gray color.
Gray color. It's the behavior is a very strong concept to grasp things without making
Footprint.
without dividing things into two, like black and white. So you just grasp in the middle. And then, but this is already connected with many different things. So you can go this way, this way, this way. And it's a very important, And なんだっけな、あとね、忘れちゃったな。Okay, I forget what I want to say.
That we're done. And one more thing, maybe in the future I want to translate your book into Vietnamese.
Okay, please.
So please keep in touch, and we want the next time we will write something. I will write an email about this thing.
Okay.
I love your idea and your concept.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. She's great.
So thank you
Yeah.
for joining today. And,
Thank you very much.
I hope to see you in the future.
Yes.
Cảm ơn Mr. Yoshiharu Tsukamoto đã tham dự cái buổi phỏng vấn ngày hôm nay, và hẹn gặp lại các bạn ở chương trình sau.
Thank you.